Welcome back, everyone. This is the Athlete Hackers Podcast. My name is Chris Schrade.
And I'm Mark Spellman. Thanks for joining us.
Today's topic is footwork.
Yes. Once again, with this week coming up in the NFL draft, you're going to see a bunch of athletes that know how to move their body very well in multiple directions and very fast and quick.
I would argue that it's one of the most important aspects of athletics.
Yes,
unless of course maybe you're swimming, and I guess maybe if when you're diving you could make an argument for footwork, but definitely if you're into jiu-jitsu and you just want to work off your back and you don't want to do takedowns, you could do a butt scoot over to your opponent and hope that he comes down to you. Then you don't really have to worry about footwork.
Yeah, I mean, and we've touched on this multiple times. You got to be able to move. I mean, one of the things that, you know, as you go up the athletic ladder from youth sports to high school to college to professional, the one thing that really separates everybody is your ability to move, and to move efficiently, effectively, and very fast. You know, the combine was a couple months ago, and there are a lot of people in my profession and our profession that make a lot of money getting people to move a tenth, 2/10, 3/10 faster over a 40-yard dash. So in the 40-yard dash at the combine, they take the 10, the 20, and the 40-yard time because, you know, as an offensive lineman, am I ever really going to run 40 yards? Probably not. So they get the 10 and the 20. They want to be able to see how people start. So one of the things that we're really looking at is how well do you move? How well do you move linear, which is straightforward, and how well do you move in multiple directions, change of direction? The definition of change of direction is the ability to accelerate, decelerate, stop, reaccelerate in any direction without losing speed or balance. So got that from Bill Parisi and the Parisi Speed School.
And that makes a lot of sense.
Where I learned a lot of my stuff. Yeah. I mean,
if you remember when we were training, when we first started doing stand-up type of stuff, I would break down shadow boxing for a lot of my clients. And the first thing we would do is we would just do footwork. Nothing but moving your feet, how you would actually move. Say if you were in a fight or if you were boxing or kickboxing or even MMA, we break down the shadow boxing, you know, maybe into 5-minute segments, but the first minute you are doing nothing but working on your footwork, because that's essentially the base that gets you into trouble and out of trouble. You know, for defense, it helps you retreat. It helps you stay in a safer position. And for offense, it gets you not only into position, but it sets up your power base to deliver strikes so that you are moving your body correctly. So you're whipping it through space and time, and so that you're utilizing the ground to ultimately generate energy into your strikes. So footwork was very important, if you remember, you know, and then from there we would do, we'd do the minute of footwork, and then continue with the footwork. We'd add the punches, then we'd add some elbows and knees, and then we add kicks and maybe even takedown defense and takedowns themselves, incorporated all into the shadow boxing. But the base was the footwork.
Well, and I think you just touched on a really good point. I mean, you broke down a whole segment into the parts, and you know that's one of the teaching tools that I learned in college is, you know, it's the part to whole method, teaching methodology. You take a complex skill and you break it down to the finer parts that make up the whole.
Yeah.
You know, and as you're looking at speed work, a lot of people forget about the arm action, proper arm action. And one of the things is, you know, I was always told that the arms are the ignition and the legs are the engine. So, you know, as I tell younger kids when I'm training them, is like, you want to get faster, or when you get tired and you're playing tag or playing your sport, move your arms faster. Your legs will keep up with your arms.
Hmm.
And for those that doubt it, go try to move your arms really, really fast while you're jogging and see what happens to your legs.
Sprint, keep your arms by your side.
Or
Better yet, have someone tie your arms to your side and do some sprints.
exactly. I mean, it just doesn't work. I mean, your body will correct itself. I mean, there's a lateral sling that goes from your heels all the way up to your head, and it's a biomechanical thing for your body to move efficiently and effectively. But when I'm working with a youth athlete or even a high level athlete, we'll go over proper arm action. And proper arm action is arms are bent at 90 degrees at your elbows, hands are open and relaxed, and you're driving your elbow back and up, and your hands you should be able to see your hands in front of your face. They should be going straight ahead, and as you switch, the elbow should drive back and up, and the other hand should come forward. And it's one of those things. I'll have the athletes sit down on the ground, legs out straight, sit up nice and tall, toes dorsiflexed, which means their toes are being pulled back to their head. And I'll have them start on my cue, and I'll just tell them to switch. And I'll have them switch, and I'll do that for a couple times. Then I'll go into first gear, so they're just moving nice and a free flow. And then I'll go up to second gear, which they go a little faster. Then I'll go up to third gear. And as they get into third gear, what usually happens is their form and technique breaks down. So I cue them back up to make sure that they're doing it properly and just not chopping broccoli. So they're just not moving their forearms. They're actually moving their arms through their shoulder. But what they find out is that when they move their arms really fast, their legs start moving. And they start scooting their butt. So they see the relationship between the arm action and their legs moving.
That's great. And, another example that comes to my mind all the time where footwork comes into play is basketball. Let's take defense, for example. You've got to be able to react to the offensive player coming at you. You don't know how he's going to move or what he's going to move. So being able to, like you said before, break down the movements of a defensive stance and shuffle is something important for players of all calibers, from beginning to end, because I think with all sports, no matter what level you're on, breaking things down into their basics as part of your training process is incredibly important, because it's the basics that got you to where you are and something that you always have to maintain.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked with a bunch of coaches, and Alan Stein Jr., who's now a motivational speaker. He was one of the top basketball trainers in the country. He's out of the DC area, and he was really connected with the Jordan brand. And one day he was working Kobe Bryant's basketball camp, and he asked Kobe if he could go watch him practice. And Kobe Bryant's like, "Yeah, sure, come on in." And he was like, "Oh, I'll beat Kobe Bryant. I'm going to beat him there." Like, that was his mindset. Like, I'm going to beat Kobe Bryant to his practice. So he pulled up to the gym, and there was already a car there. And Kobe was already in the gym and already had a lather up. But he watched the whole practice, which I believe lasted like 2 hours, maybe a little longer. And when he got done, Alan asked Kobe, he's like, "I noticed you just worked on the basics." And he's like, "Yeah, it's what got me here.
Yeah.
I'm very attention detailed to the basics, because once again, and we've touched on this about pretty much all of our topics, the basics and the foundation are what's going to make you successful."
And those top athletes, when you see them creating something that hasn't been done before, performing at that peak level, it's because they have a solid grounding in the basics, and everything comes up from there.
Yeah.
That's where that creation comes from. It's the confidence and the foundation in the basics.
once again, I mean, and I think a lot of people know the book Malcolm Gladwell, Outliers,
Great book.
um, and based on 10,000 hours, but it's not just 10,000 hours of practice. It's 10,000 hours of purposeful practice.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that. Well, break down 40 hours in a work week, times that by 50. That's 2,000, I think. I'm pretty sure. Okay, so to get to 10,000, that's 5 years. Well, most people aren't. It's usually 10 years. I mean,
Yeah.
I'll revert back to what it usually takes to get a black belt in jiu-jitsu. It's about 10 years. So, when people think like these people are, there's really no such thing as an overnight success.
No.
I mean, it's the people that don't see the hours of work and the years that it takes to get to where they're at.
The whole idea of black belts in martial arts really came from schools in Japan where you would show up day one and get a white belt. And through years of hard work, blood, sweat, tears, that belt would eventually turn black. So
yeah, it would change. It would change colors.
the color coordination system came from just Americans, monetizing martial arts. But Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is probably the closest thing to that ancient way of receiving your black belt, because they know a huge difference of what separates a white belt from a blue belt, from purple, from brown to black.
Yeah, I mean, and we've both trained with upper level jiu-jitsu practitioners, and there's a difference.
Yeah.
There's a difference. There's a difference between a high level black belt and somebody that just got their black belt, and somebody who just started. I mean, and it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's I've been through enough promotion ceremonies that when somebody gets a new belt, and they always thank Master, but Marcio doesn't give out belts.
No.
It's something that you earn. So it's it's one of those things. But let's regress. Getting back to footwork.
Yeah.
It's, I think, one of the things that we wanted to talk about is how to improve it. And one of the things that gets that has a good and a bad rap to it is the agility ladder. Now, you don't need an agility ladder. What you need is pavement.
Cones. You could do it with cones too, right?
Pavement.
Draw.
No, you can draw it.
Chalk or
you can
something.
put tape down.
Yeah.
An agility ladder, I have no idea what they cost. Probably anywhere between $50 to $100. But
At 30, you could get them at $30 at like Dick's or something like that.
Okay. I like to have it go a little longer, so I usually put two of them together. Try and get a little conditioning aspect to it as well.
So the ladder rungs are what, 12 to 18 inches? I think they're more like 18 inches apart. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, they'll go anywhere from 12 to 18. But here's the thing. For those people that have larger feet, you really don't need to worry about it, because when you're doing the drills, you're supposed to stay on the ball of your feet and toes. You shouldn't be flat-footed when you're doing any of these drills, much like you shouldn't be flat-footed when you're sprinting. You should be on the ball of your feet and your toes, and you should be moving. I use it more as a movement prep device. I use it. I don't really consider it a speed or an agility ladder. I consider it a movement prep ladder, and I use it mostly for warming up, to ingrain and reinforce proper movement mechanics. So what I mean by that is, if we're moving to our left, we're pushing off with our right foot. If we're going right, we're pushing off with our left foot. Instead of reaching with your lead leg, you want to push with that back foot, because for anybody that's played in a team sport, when somebody has the ball and if you reach for it with your lead leg instead of pushing with your back leg, and they come back and cut back in the other direction, well, they're going to be by you. And, as I like to say, now we're playing oh shit defense.
I had that on my team that I coached quite a bit this past season. You know, when we practice defense, just like the shadow boxing drills, we'd break it down into its parts. I'm sure you've seen the defensive drills where they start with in this defensive stance and they do the fast feet where they're moving, and
Yeah.
they've got to switch their hips to the angles and then slide and then slide. I threw some burpees in there just to mess them up a little more, but that they have to get up and reposition themselves, get back into that proper position. And I think one of the things that was lost. I mean, we're talking 10-year-olds, so or 9 and 10-year-olds, so they're just starting off. But particularly in a defensive stance, you've got to have a low center of gravity to be able to react to that offensive player who does have the advantage. So, how does that play into training in terms of the agility ladder? A lot of times you're kind of straight up and down, aren't you?
Well, yeah, you want to make sure that they get in a good athletic position. By that I mean feet are going forward, feet are about a little wider than hip width apart, foot, ankle, knee, hip are all in alignment, head up, chest up, butt down, back flat. Um, you know, you want to make sure, especially with the younger athletes, is that you don't over cue them, because when you over cue them, it's like sensory overload, and they just look at you and be like, blah, blah, blah.
What do you mean by that?
That you want to keep the cues straightforward and simple. Be be tall. You don't want to be over. You don't want your chest facing the ground. You want your belly button to be like a lighthouse. Wherever
You're
wherever your
saying
body goes, you want
don't
your belly button.
overload them with scientific jargon. Just
No,
keep it simple.
don't over cue them. A lot of coaches right now, they over cue their athletes, especially in the strength and conditioning world. I mean, give them 3 cues. Give them 3, no more. I mean, if everything's going forward, we're good. I mean, you don't need to, you don't really need to give them that much. You want to make it simple.
And
Keep it
and
simple.
by Q 3 Qs you mean back straight, um, in a squat stance and head above your shoulders, something like that. That's what you mean
Yeah,
by Qs.
I mean, each coach is going to cue it differently, but it's also everybody's got the same end line. They want the be in a good athletic position, bend the hips, bend the knees, feet going forward, head up, chest up, butt down, back flat. But like, I just gave you like 8 things to think about, and that's for some. And now I got to play defense,
Yeah.
so I got to watch the person in front of me and make sure they don't get by me. Well, once again, just keep it simple so that the athletes, as they get more entrenched and more get better at the skill, then you can add on more details to it. Like you said, you start with footwork, then we go footwork with punching, then we go footwork, punching, and throwing a knee or an elbow. So you add on to the foundation that you've already made. Most athletes can't get into a proper position right now. You know,
There's a lot when I was coaching, a lot of deep ingrained coaching styles started emanating from my spirit. I started channeling all my coaches of the past. But one of the things that kept coming about in terms of footwork and defense is that I had some of my guards were pretty athletic, and you know when they're playing against their buddies or kids who are not as developed as them, it's easy for them to steal the ball, to pick it when the other person's dribbling. But in these travel games that we went to, the kids were a lot better, especially the ones who had a really good handle, have been playing for a couple of years. And the phenomenon that I notice is that every single time, and I filmed all my games, so I would go back and analyze this. Every single time they would get beat because they went for the steal, their feet were implanted in cement. they couldn't do both at the same time. They couldn't go for the steal, but be coordinated enough and reactive enough that if they missed it, to be able to drop step or shuffle in the direction that the offensive player was going to. Um, so do you think, I mean, is it a developmental thing at 9 and 10 years old where they can't coordinate that? Is there a way to do something with the agility ladder where you're kind of training the lower half with the upper half? What would you say about that phenomenon?
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is the great quote from Michael Jordan: "You reach, I teach."
That's exactly what
I
it
mean,
was.
it goes back to that. I mean, and that's coming up on the Bulls documentary starts tonight.
It's tonight,
And
right?
oh,
Is it
I
Bulls
mean,
documentary or it's a Jordan documentary?
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I don't think there's a basketball person that's not going to watch this because everybody's fiending for something to watch.
Yeah.
But once again, you don't play defense with your hands; you play defense with your feet.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I was saying about my inner coaches. I mean, I didn't want to discourage them from stealing the ball because it's part of defense. But I remember all my coaches telling me, don't go for the steal, stay in front of the guy, move your feet, which is what I would say. I would scream it, when they would make that mistake. But how do you get the best of both worlds? How do you coordinate those those hand movements, but also the reaction of being able to move your feet while you're doing that? Is that a developmental thing, or is that something
Well,
that?
I mean, there's a bunch of drills that you can do. One of the ones that we do for lateral movement are speed skaters. So you set like cones a little wider than arm width apart. If your arms to the side, so you have the cones a little outside of their reach, and you have them start on one cone, hop over to the other cone, landing on the other foot, touch the cone, and just go back and forth. You know, there's so many drills that you can do for footwork. The agility ladder, once again, helps out with their ability to move. Once again, if you're going right, you got to push left. If you're going left, you got to push right. So it gets them out of that habit of reaching with that front foot. You want to be able to push with the back foot.
There's a
Also,
guy on YouTube, I forget his name, but I have Aiden do these drills. He does an agility ladder and he does ball handling drills while he's doing it. So he'll do his drills on the agility ladder, but he'll be moving a ball around his waist, doing the circles around his waist with the ball. Have you ever done something where they're doing the agility ladder and maybe you're throwing a tennis ball at them or something, so they're doing the drills and they're reacting?
no, I usually stay away from that. I mean, that's also getting to the higher level. I mean, I'll have usually what will happen is I would do that with like a lacrosse goalie or a soccer goalie where they're going through the drill, and I'll actually stand behind them and I'll throw the ball at the wall, so I don't even know where the ball is going usually, and make them react to it. But it won't be with the agility ladder. It'll be more for getting them ready for a game, and stuff like that. Um, Coordinating the upper body and lower body together and having them be able to do things separately, it comes with time and practicing it and doing drills like you've said. One of the things as people are looking to put together like a workout program, I would break it up to doing an acceleration day, a change of direction day, a top speed day, and a strength day. And I'm gonna be quite honest. That's the way the Parisi Speed School broke it down for us when I was at the Y, because those are the four different aspects of becoming a better athlete. The acceleration, you're dealing with the first 10 to 15 yards. Change of direction, I already went over the definition of that. Top speed is 20 yards and longer. And then strength, the ability to put more, generate and put more force into the ground. I don't care the way you train, but there's really only three ways to get faster. You can increase your stride frequency, You can increase your stride length, and you can increase your ability to produce more force into the ground. So if you want to get faster, you got to work on all three of those.
So a lot of the strength and conditioning kind of focuses around that type of stuff when it comes to footwork. But I guess it's more of the drills and the rehearsal that probably work on the coordination aspect, right? So you got to have both. I think, a lot of what we're going to talk about in this podcast going on is what you mentioned earlier, breaking things down into their parts. So, whether it's you could be learning a new strength and conditioning movement, or you could be learning a new skill or working on a skill, you're going to break it down into its parts and drill it over and over and over again. But then you have to put that into more of a holistic practice. So it's more it's more game speed. You're not, now you're reproducing what would actually happen in a game, because in a game, you don't have time to break things down into the parts. That's when the whole comes out.
Well,
So,
and as a coach now, I mean, the days of being a coach and telling your athletes to do it and not giving them a why, those days are gone. I mean, we grew up in a period that a coach told you to do something, you just did it. I mean, that's the way we were raised. Now it's, with all the information that's out there on social media and the likes, athletes want to know why. Why do I need to do this? So, as a coach, you better work back from the sport or the activity that the athlete's doing and find out what they need to do as far as their training, whether it's in the weight room or on the track or on the field. And you better be able to support what you're doing with them and be able to communicate why they need to do this and how it's going to help them. Because if you can't do that, there's not going to be a lot of buy-in on their end. We're not just going to do something to do it. There's a reason, there's a rhyme and a reason for everything that I do with all the people that I train so they can meet their specific goals.
I don't know if you and I worked on any katas when we were training. Did you do any of the karate katas?
Yeah, we hit that wooden dummy a couple times.
Yeah, I guess that's sort of the same thing. The idea is routine type of movements that you do in a certain sequence, and you do that over and over and over again. And it's coordination. It's teaching your body how to move in certain ways. But I think that idea of a kata transfers over into sports and into skill work. So, for instance, if you're working on your jab step in basketball and you want to do a pump fake and then drive to your right side, you got to break it down into the parts, and you have to feel your feet. Like you've got to be able to see where you're getting your power from to be able to explode powerfully and efficiently past the opponent. Probably similarly in baseball, when you get a hit, that first instance of dropping the bat, turning, and starting to explode towards first base, those are the parts that you've got to break down in your training in terms of skill work in a coordinated fashion. So, you break down the parts and you work on those individually until they become second nature.
Yeah, I mean, and I think one of the athletes I used when I'm first starting to work with individuals is I use Derek Jeter because he was very famous for going to his backhand, jumping up in the air and throwing the ball to first base, and everybody's like, "Man, that's awesome." I'm like, "Yeah, how many times do you think he's worked on that?"
Yeah.
I mean, because he's not thinking about moving anymore. He's now reacting. And that's kind of like, I want my athletes to be able to get to the point where they're not thinking about moving anymore.
Right.
Because if you're thinking about moving, the person that you're playing is going to beat you.
Yeah.
You can't think about, oh, this guy's going to his right, my left, so I need to push with my right foot in order to get there. You just need to be able to react. And as the athlete develops, you'll see their ability. I mean, one day it's just like a light bulb goes off and they know how to move better.
Yeah.
But it's
And,
from the practicing of all the different parts that gets them to that point.
yep. Skill work, multiple sports participation, and a good, solid physical strength and conditioning program.
Yeah,
That's what's going to get you there.
yeah. I mean, once again, I mean, I hate to say we keep talking about it, but once again, you gotta master the basics, and once you do that, then we can add some flash to it.
Yeah.
But without there's a reason we crawl, walk, and then run. I mean, because that's how the body works. You don't come into this world right out of the gate being able to run.
No.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Imagine a 2-week-old with the ability to run.
So what do you got? Anything else? I think
um,
that was a lot of information for people to digest.
yeah, and I think right now, I think while people are at home figuring out things to do, use your resources. I mean, there's so much information out there right now.
Yeah.
Um, but have a discerning eye for what you're looking at, because right now there are also a lot of people out there trying to capitalize on the situation. If you're going to somebody's website or looking somebody up on YouTube, find their background, find out that they have the education that they should have. They should have an undergraduate degree in the field, hopefully a master's degree. They should have professional certifications, and they should have multiple years of
Experience.
experience and working with people.
Yeah.
And right now, the resources that I would go to the Atlas, which they're out in Arizona. Dan Paff is the gentleman's name. He's phenomenal. Bill Parisi, the Parisi Speed School, Tarek Hansen, and then Hunter, and I forget Hunter's last name, but I'm going to look it up right now. These are all, world-class strength, speed coaches out there. So if you're looking for people out there that have websites already up and you can look them up, then I
And
go with it.
the other important thing to do as an athlete, you need to keep an open mind. You do need to check backgrounds, but you need to be able to make the decision for yourself. Because at the end of the day, you're the one that's out on the field or the court by yourself, and you have to know what works for you. You try a little bit
Yeah.
of everything. You keep an open mind. You discern what works, and you throw out what doesn't. I mean, that's
Well,
it.
and
Life.
once again, I mean, the gentleman's name is Hunter uh, Chernesky. It's sprint or die. But once again, I mean, I talked with the Richmond basketball strength coach, and once again, it sounds silly, but the answer is 4. And we all got to 4, but was it the square root of 16? Was it 8 minus 4, or was it 2 plus 2? Well, we all got to 4, and there's multiple ways to get there. And like Chris said, you got to find out what works best for you. I mean, that's why there's a bunch of strength and conditioning coaches out there and a bunch of personal trainers, because they all do it a little bit differently.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to find out, as I've stated, I tell people when they come to work with me, I'm not for everybody. And I know that. And I don't want to really be for everybody. I mean, I want to work with people that want to put in the work, want to get after it, and aren't going to come in and bitch, moan, and complain that they have to do something. Once again, you don't have to do it. You get to do it.
You're looking for masochists.
Well, yeah, okay. And as I tell them, I mean, you're coming to me for my services. You should be more concerned about what I do to myself than what I do to somebody else.
Yeah.
because like I enjoy training.
Yeah.
It keeps me healthy and keeps me
Good
mentally well.
and good looking.
Eh. God bless you.
All right, everyone. Well, thanks for turning in. Don't discount the importance of footwork. Get a sound strength and conditioning program. Work on your coordination. Keep yourself well.
You got to be able to move.
Absolutely. That's all for today. Thanks for turning in. We'll catch you on the next
Be
one.
safe. Be well. All my best. God bless.
Peace.
See ya.